Today we will be looking at all the important topics in the chapter is matter around a sphere from grade 9. The first topic is what is a mixture. A mixture is a combination of two or more than two compounds. Next is the types of mixture. There are mainly two types of mixture, homogeneous and heterogeneous. Homogeneous mixtures are when the same compounds are used. For example, salt is added to water and mixed, and again more salt is used. So since salt is the only substance that is being added, it is a homogeneous mixture. Now if salt and sugar is added to a solution, it is heterogeneous because there are two substances, sugar and salt. The next topic is what is solution. A solution is a homogeneous mixture. Homo is same. So same types of mixture of two substances. So that is what is a solution. Now we know solutions can either be solid, liquid or gas. But also we have solid solutions such as alloys and gaseous solutions such as air. So these are the examples for solid solutions, alloys and gaseous solutions, that is air. Basically, a solvent plus a solution will give you a solvent plus a solute will give you solution. So these are the components of a solution. Now let's look at examples of solution. A solution of sugar and water is a solid and liquid solution. A solution of iodine and alcohol is also known as tincture of iodine. This is important. Tincture of iodine has iodine as a solute and alcohol as solvent. Basically, these examples are very important and can be asked for MCQs or even assertion reasons. Next is the properties of a solution. This is also important. So a solution is always a homogeneous mixture. The particles of a solution are smaller than 1 nanometer in diameter and they cannot be seen by the naked eyes. Because of its very small particle size, they do not scatter a beam of light passing through the solution. So the path of the light is not visible in a solution. Solute particles cannot be separated from the mixture by the process of filtration. These are important points. The next topic is concentration of solutions. So a solution can be dilute or concentrate. Dilute solutions are the solutions in which the amount of solute is less. That is, in sugar and salt, if you are adding 1 spoon of sugar in water, then the solution will not be that sweet. If you are adding 10 spoons of sugar, then it will be. That tells us that more solute you are adding, the more concentrated the solution is becoming. The less solute you are adding, the more dilute it is becoming. So that's the difference between dilute and concentrated. And concentration of solution is given by amount of solute divided by the amount of solution, or the amount of solute per amount of solution is what we call as concentration. There are various ways in which you can express the concentration of a solution. You will learn this in higher grades. And here we will be learning only two. That is mass percentage and volume percentage. Mass percentage is when mass of solute divided by mass of solution into 100. Volume percentage is mass of solute divided by volume of solution into 100. So these are the two important equations you need to know. Then go through these questions. All the questions in the textbooks are important. Now what is suspension? That's the next topic. A non-homogeneous systems like those obtained in group C in activity 2.8 above, in which the solids are dispersed in liquids, are called suspensions. So when you take a glass of water and you are adding undissolved or not dissolvable solutes, it is known as suspensions. See, a suspension is a heterogeneous mixture, that is not the same particles, in which the solute particles do not dissolve but remain suspended throughout. It is passed or it is scattered around the solvent. So that is what suspension is. Now we look at the properties of a suspension. Suspension is a heterogeneous mixture. The particles can be seen by the naked eye. The particles of a suspension is scattered and it can scatter the beam of light passing through it. And the solute particles settle down. So that is what we call as precipitate. Now what is a colloidal solution? So colloidal solution is nothing but when the solute is scattered in the solvent in uniform composition. That is, the solute is not seen at the bottom. It is scattered throughout the solvent. It does not form precipitate. So that is what basically a colloid is. Now an important example for a colloidal or an important example for this topic is Tyndall effect. Tyndall effect is when sunlight passes through the canopy of a dense forest. So you can see, even though there are so many trees, light still makes way or takes a path between those trees. So this is the Tyndall effect, and this is also an important topic. Next is the properties of a colloid. A colloid is a heterogeneous mixture. The size of particles can also be seen. Colloids are big enough to scatter a beam of light, and they do not settle down when left undisturbed. That is, colloid does not leave a precipitate. And colloids cannot be separated from the mixture by the process of filtration. But there is another process called centrifugation, which can be used to separate these particles from the solvent. Next, they're talking about disperse. Once again, disperse phase is nothing but the solute that is in the solvent, and disperse medium is the solvent. Now, colloids are classified according to the state solid, liquid, and gas of the dispersing medium and the dispersed phase. These questions are also important. Make sure you look at that. And now these examples, this is very, very important. This can be asked for MCQs. Then we have separating of the components of a mixture. How can we, separate these kinds of mixtures? Heterogeneous mixtures can be separated by hand picking, sieving, filtration, etc. Now these are all applications of the above mentioned things. That is, how can we obtain colored component, that is dye, from blue or black ink. So that when you do this experiment, so when you go through chemistry, read all these experiments, because what they'll do is they'll show these pictures and ask you what this is about, explain the experiment. So this is important. And then the applications used in diagnostic laboratories for so what are the applications of these experiments? That is, this experiment is how can you separate cream from milk. So from this experiment they might ask you what are the applications and where all are they used. Next is, how can we separate a mixture from two immiscible liquids. Immiscible means not dissolvable or not mixed together. They cannot be mixed together. So that is what immiscible means. So how do you do that? They'll show you this picture. Now especially this picture is very, very important. This is seen in most of the 9th grade papers, and this is very important, and that is, how do we separate a mixture of salt and ammonium chloride. This is very important. And they'll ask you to label this picture. So make sure you go through this picture as well. Next, they'll ask you, so basically all the experiments are important, and if there is given any application in any experiment, then the applications are very, very important. Now see, here is how can we separate a mixture of two miscible liquids. Miscible means they can be mixed together. So how do you do that? That is through distillation and so many things. So that's what I said, read through the experiments. So experiments are all very important. Now they'll ask you what is distillation. Distillation, the definition of distillation is important, as well as this diagram. All the diagrams are important. Then they'll ask you, how can we obtain different gases from air. So air, when it is compressed and cooled, you get liquid air. Now if you allow it to get warm up and slowly in a frictional or fractional distillation column, gases get separated at different heights. So gases in air can be separated by a fractional distillation column. These questions are very important, and this table is not very important. That's not that important. Now this is important. This is what happens inside the fridges and many other areas. So this topic completely follows all the experiments. The applications are very important. And then physical and chemical changes. So what is a physical change? What is a chemical change? Physical changes are the changes you do to an object that can be reversed. So suppose if you fold a paper, you're making some changes in the paper and it can be reversed. So that is what physical changes is. Chemical changes are. So once again, what are physical and chemical changes? Chemical changes are not reversible, whereas physical changes are reversible. So if you burn the paper, you get a different compound. So that means there is some change that is, done chemically. So that is the difference between physical and chemical. Now what are the types of pure substances? Pure substances can be categorized into two, that is elements and compounds. Elements are single substances. Compounds are when two elements come together. It is what we call as compounds. All these properties are important. They'll ask you what are the properties of metals. So they are lustrous, they are malleable, sonorous, ductile. All these are very important. Read this page and as well as this example. This can be asked for MCQs. And then compounds. When you add two compounds together, you get two elements together, you get a compound. This table is extremely important. Mixtures and compounds. The difference, they might ask you either mixtures and compounds or elements and compounds or elements and mixtures. So these differences are important. Next is matter. So this, if you study this, like if you go through this table, then going through these pages is not that necessary except the properties and this table. So if you go through this, then it will be easy for you to understand, because matter can be categorized into pure substances and mixtures. Pure substances are broken into elements and compounds. Mixtures are broken into homogeneous mixtures and heterogeneous mixtures. Now, after studying all of these topics, you have to go to the summary. The summary, if you go to the summary in the morning, then everything that you studied today will be easier. Today or the night before will be easier. So these are all and after doing the summary, if you get time in the morning, go through the questions as well, because these questions will be really helpful when you go and sit for the exam. So these are all the important topics from the chapter Is Matter Around Us Pure from grade 9. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.